Okay, so how many of you have social media, or more specifically, Snapchat? Okay, see. So how many of you have opened the stories of those celebrities or like influencers, and you see that most of the time they're either some of them are smoking marijuana or using some kind of marijuana product. Well, these situations allow politicians and those in the media to use to their advantage and dismiss the benefits of legalizing marijuana. However, legalizing marijuana brings a lot of benefits to society. It generates more money for the economy. It opens doors to medical advancements, and it could potentially stop organized crime. So for years now, society, it's been hard to not notice the money illegal marijuana could bring to the table. So according to Michael Caputo and Brian Ostom, they're both media consultants and political analysts. In the year 1991, the revenue marijuana brought out was $5 to $9 billion, which is a lot at that time. Just last year, the Washington Post reanalyzed that and noticed that it's actually at about $132 billion. With $132 billion, we could, if the government decides to legalize marijuana, could use that to their advantage. Instead of wasting money fighting it, they could just use it for better infrastructure, funding education, because I know I would love to have a little bit more financial aid if I could. And states are starting to recognize that. The state of Colorado was one of the first states to legalize marijuana within their territory. And in the same article by the Washington Post, they noticed Colorado after the first 4 months gained over $10 million in just taxes alone from marijuana. And the economy and those who use marijuana recreationally aren't the only ones that benefit from the legalization. Those who use it for medicinal purposes would benefit as well. Article by David Pfeiffer, who's an attorney who is an advocate for legalizing marijuana, was following around doctors, and he wrote an article about it. And he saw that it's used by many people for things like anxiety, ADHD, to more severe illnesses such as AIDS, cancer, even glaucoma. And he noticed that those who were suffering from AIDS and cancer had a very rapidly lost so much weight that it was getting at a very dangerous level. And doctors used medicinal marijuana to activate that hunger in them so they could eat more. And it also helped them during treatments when some treatments are very, very painful. And at first I didn't really believe that until my grandma, before she passed away, she was fighting cancer for 9 years, and the last year or so from her treatments, or that she was still living with us, she actually used medicinal marijuana. And at first she was skeptical, like a lot of people would be, obviously, but she saw a huge difference. She had a lot of pain from treatments, but after using the medicinal marijuana, she wouldn't, obviously it didn't cure her, but the pain would go away, and it really helped a lot for her mentally, and it helped us too mentally, so we wouldn't see her suffer as much as she did. And also for like glaucoma. Glaucoma is a disease that affects the eyes, and many of these patients use it to because when they use at the first stages of treatment, it really swells up your eyes and it's really painful. So they use this to pretty much numb the pain. And another point is that legalizing marijuana could potentially help lower crime in the cities that we live in. I know in my city we have a lot of gang violence, and you see a lot of gangs fighting each other for territories, and most of it is to sell drugs on the streets. and most of these gangs make money off these drugs. So if with legalizing marijuana, it's gonna help fluctuate the prices. It's gonna help how manufacturing is used and how it's being cultivated. And according to a FBI report, the city of Denver, after its first 6 months of legalizing it, the crime rate, which is basic crime, dropped over 10%, and violent crimes such as murder, homicide, stuff like that, dropped over 5%. So it's shown in cities that it actually does help stop crime. It's gonna take time, but it will help. It will happen. And so, yeah, the topic of legalizing marijuana, it's a very sensitive subject, because a lot of people already have this mindset of what marijuana is. Because I know if I bring it up to my mom, she's gonna go crazy, because she already has this mindset from a young age of what marijuana does. But we live in a new world. We're progressing, we're finding new things, and maybe 10, 20 years ago, marijuana was seen as uncivilized, but it's come to show that it's actually benefiting us more than before. It's actually way better than legal products like tobacco, like alcohol, even prescription drugs. We've seen a lot of celebrities, a lot of just civilians suffer from overdosing in prescriptions, from alcohol poisoning, and tobacco is one of the leading causes for cancer in a lot of in society. So, if what you can get from this speech is that it is a very sensitive subject, but I do think that legalizing marijuana, and it's shown that it's going to benefit the economy, it's going to help progress with medical advancements, and it's hopefully going to stop more crime in our cities. Thank you.
Megan, you got some comments?
I feel like his presentation was very well. He explained like in the beginning like what he was going to talk about, and he kind of gave us a summary of like his main points. And I like how he used the personal examples. And then when he was stating his sources, he also stated like why these people are like important to his speech, like kind of like who are these people. He didn't just state like a name, and they're just kind of like not explain like who it is and like why like it's kind of important to like the topic. So I thought that was really good. I also really liked how at the end he used like we have like a lot of other products that are like legal but they're really bad, like cigarettes, and like how people have died off those. But I mean, I've never heard stories of somebody like dying off of marijuana or overdosing, so it's not really. The only thing I felt was that maybe he could have used a rebuttal, since this is a very controversial topic. Like, because I feel like a lot of people can see all the good benefits, but there's like many other people out there that see like all the bad benefits of like marijuana. So maybe just kind of like stating like a rebuttal, like, and then just going back to your topic. That's the only thing I could have maybe seen that can make it a little bit stronger.
Okay. I thought that the introduction was a little bit confusing about the influencers on Snapchat and how that gets used against people who are advocating marijuana. I didn't really understand what the point of that was. That just, except for identifying the subject as marijuana, it felt like it was unrelated to the point that you're trying to make. You do have a clear claim, though, as to what it is you're trying to say, and there's a good preview of what the supporting structure is going to be. I do see an organizational pattern in the presentation, so I think that that's pretty solid. The information about the economic activity is not unreasonable. You've got good information that talks about what the activity was before and how significant it is now. There seems to be an assumption, though, that suddenly if we legalized it, all that money would flow into the government coffers, and I'm not exactly sure how you see this working. In other words, is the government going to become the producers of marijuana and they're going to make that $132 billion and spend it? I'm not sure that that's, anybody's idea of the way this would be legalized. So I think you're kind of, there is an economic activity going on here. There is some benefit to it when it comes to obviously employing people or creating spending in the economy. The question is, how do we benefit from that? That I'm not sure that you get to that point. And the closest you come to it is suggesting that the tax revenues would be substantial. And you've got the Colorado example of $10 million that they got from tax revenue. So that, I think, is maybe the start of that particular point. That needed to be developed a little bit more. The notion that there are medical benefits on this, I think, is a little bit underdeveloped. You do have some information that suggests that there is an impact, for example, for people who have weight loss issues related to AIDS or cancer treatments, and that, I think, information was a little bit abstract, but you do give us a source citation on that. The personal example with your grandmother, I thought that was that's useful, and I think it does develop an emotional component to what's talking about, although we don't have any way of knowing. Your description of how her life was better as a consequence is not really very complete, so I think you need to give us maybe some more detail on that, and then maybe some information that suggests that this is a generalizable sort of thing. Other issues I didn't think were as well developed. The glaucoma issue I thought was mostly asserted. Your proof on that point was a lot thinner than it needed to be. On the crime issue, there's some statistical correlations that you're making assumptions on. I think that that's a little bit problematic. You're kind of going in the right direction, but the notion that legalization in Colorado is what's responsible for the decline in the murder rate in Denver, that seems to me to be a leap of faith that needs more information on it. And you seem to acknowledge that this is preliminary information and long-term stuff is going to require additional information. I think that that's probably true. I'd agree a little bit with Megan about the argument that says that there are some reservation issues that people might have and that you need to address those. I didn't think that you did that as well as you could have. I thought that there was a very good summary at the end of the speech, and we knew what your position was, and you reminded us about what the main ideas were during the presentation, and that did help quite a bit. All right, thank you.